You're on.
My name is Beverly Sanders, and today is Friday, October 14th, 2016. I'm visiting today with Robert St. John in Norman, Oklahoma. We're at McFarlin United Methodist Church, and we are, boy, can I start that over?
Not really. Go ahead. All right, hang on just a minute.
My
Okay.
name is Beverly Sanders, and today is Friday, October 14th, 2016. I'm visiting today with Robert St. John at McFarlin United Methodist Church in Norman, Oklahoma. Joe Sanders will be assisting with the recording equipment and sometimes adding a question. This interview is for the historical records of McFarlin United Methodist Church, as well as the Voices of Oklahoma United Methodism project of the Oklahoma Conference Oral History Research Program. This research program is coordinated through the Commission on Archives and History with the support of the Oklahoma United Methodist Historical Society. So Robert, we sure do appreciate you taking time out of your day and coming down to visit with us and share some of your memories and experiences with McFarlin.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
So why don't you just start out and give us an introduction about yourself, where you were born, and a lot of your family and that sort of thing.
Well, I was born in Westmoreland, Kansas on March the 20th, 1927. So I'm 89 years old now. And after we lived there just about a year, my parents moved to Topeka, Kansas. And that was my home until I got married and left home. I went to college in different places, but Topeka was my home.
And you met your wife in Topeka then while you were there?
And I was a Methodist. My family were Methodists, and my wife, Phyllis, was also from a Methodist family. And we met at the Kansas Avenue Methodist Church in Topeka.
Oh, I see. Mm-hmm.
And so
And when were you married?
we were married in 1949, June of 1949.
I see. Okay. Joe has told me that you served some military time during World War II. Does that come next in sequence here, or were you
Yes.
married before? Or I guess you're married after World War II.
I was married after the war. I graduated from high school, Seaman Rural High School in Topeka, Kansas, in May of 1945. At that time, I joined the Navy. I volunteered and joined the Navy
The Navy.
so that I would not be drafted and be a proverbial dog face
Yeah.
who didn't have the facilities of a bed and meals on a regular basis like one in the Navy. So I had studied physics when I was in my senior year in high school, had an interest in that, and I was able to be assigned to electronics schools in the Navy.
Uh-huh.
And there it involved radio communications, but also radar and sonar, which were pretty new technologies used by the Navy in particular. And so I was trained in the use of maintaining and repairing this equipment, and they used, at that time, all vacuum tubes. And so I was able to do that, and I'd been to about 3 different assignment schools in the United States, and was about ready to be assigned to go on board ship. And but then the bomb,
Oh, yeah.
the big bomb, was dropped in Japan, and so the military missions had been accomplished, and so in 1946, then I was discharged, having served a little over a year in the Navy. So that I got home in late summer and was able to go to college. That fall, I went a year to Washburn University in Topeka, and then I knew I had to go to another institution where I could study engineering more completely. So I went to Kansas State University in Manhattan, Kansas, and worked on a degree and completed my bachelor's degree in the area of electrical engineering in 1951.
So you were married to Phyllis part of the time you were going to college?
We got married, yes, when I was in college. And she worked in a photographic studio and helped with the income. I had the GI Bill of Rights and income from that and tuition, so that helped a great amount. Then I became acquainted with the physics program while I was there, and then I completed a master's degree at Kansas State University in physics. There my career took me to the University of Wisconsin in Madison. My wife and I went there. We had no children until after my education was completed. So in 1954, I had finished my work and had a number of interviews. The one that was most successful and led to a job offer was here at the University of Oklahoma.
I see.
So we came in September of 1954. And I understand that was a very hot and dry summer. We were introduced by some of the university people to a lady who had some rentals, didn't own them, but she was in charge.
Say that again, had some what?
Rental properties, apartments. And so I've searched my mind for her name, but she was a member of McFarlin Church. And so she suggested when we had come and gotten our apartment, you must, and had learned that we were Methodists, that you must come visit McFarlin. And so we did that, and we fell in love with the church and the people and the programs. And it didn't take but, I think, one of the visits from one of the church visitors shortly after we came for us to make the decision to transfer our memberships from a tiny little church, started church up in Madison, Wisconsin here.
Now, do you remember what the woman's name was that
No,
first
I don't.
invited you?
Did Tom Wilson by any chance come by and visit you?
No,
No, that was probably before you got involved in that.
it was someone else, and again, I've been trying to think who it was, but it wasn't Tom. But since I'd had this experience in the small church in Madison, we knew the importance of church growth and getting people involved and reaching out to people.
Right.
So I think even in the first year of church membership here, I learned of the visitation program that was going on. and I went to that. In those days, we seemed like we met for a 6 o'clock meal. Maybe they were
The whole church
10
met for the 6 o'clock
No,
meeting?
no, no,
No,
no.
the
The visitors, church.
oh, the church visitors. Oh, okay.
Church visitors on Monday evenings.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a simple meal, not a banquet or anything.
Uh-huh.
But we could come and get together, and then every Monday evening we went out to make calls, and we regularly had 3 or 4 prospective families to visit. And there we just kind of teamed up with whoever showed up. It wasn't the same groupings all the time. Later on, I continued this for more than 50 years. In fact, I have a certificate, which I'll show you, which was issued on May the 1st of 2011, recognizing that I had been involved for more than 50 years in the church visitation program. And in the later years, not as many people went out. We didn't have the dinners. And so we kind of had teams of 2. And I paired up with Dick Holland for quite a little spell. And then eventually I got to going with Russell Dilks. And I went with Russell until the end of my visitation career. Russell is deceased now, but he was a wonderful partner to go with.
I see. Yeah, I remember one time, just after we moved into town, so it would be in the 2000s, I remember one time driving down Jenkins Street through the campus and
Yes.
seeing you crossing the street there with your cup going to visit somebody. I don't know where you were, but you had your McFarlin cup going across the street too.
Yes, we often took a little gift sometime. Well, we got the cups in the last 20 or 25 years. And so those made very good object to get interest in why we were there. At one time, I think we took a little bunch of cookies
Oh, yeah.
to people. And
You know, and before we get too far away from this introductory stuff, how about telling us about your children?
we have 2 children. A son, Glenn, who was born in 1956. That was 2 years after we came. And a daughter, Carol, who was born in 1961. And so they both grew up in the Sunday school. They were in the choirs and youth programs. And both attended OU and got degrees in engineering.
They both got degrees in engineering.
Yes, they did.
Uh-huh.
And so it was a couple of times they were in my class.
Oh, is that right?
And,
That must have been kind of an awkward situation.
Well, it was. You don't want to show favoritism. And I
But you
did.
don't want to hold anything against them
No,
and keep them
no.
from doing what they can either.
That's right. So they were good students. They didn't need any
Yeah.
additional propping up, or they made their own way.
So your teaching at Oklahoma has always been in engineering. You never actually taught in the physics department or anything like that?
No, I was with the Department of Physics. I taught physics. And we had another program in the engineering college, the engineering physics, which is applied physics, as it uses the basis of a good background in physics. And I was the chairman of that little grouping for 10 or 15 years. And so, the others, I had 2 main kinds of students. I had these engineering students, and I also had pre-med students.
Oh, yeah.
So they were a fun group, and I know there are many doctors and people in nursing and so on, the health sciences that I have been a part of.
You had what?
My instruction
Oh,
has been a part of.
You know, in 1954, when I came to OU, I took an Engineering 101 Introduction to Engineering class, because I came with the idea that I was going to be an engineer. Didn't
Okay.
work out, but but anyway, I gathered that that was kind of a new class at that time, that it was just being invented. Do you remember anything about that?
I can't say much
Yeah.
about that.
Okay. Okay, so back to the church now. When you got here, who was the minister, if you remember, and what kind of things were going on in 1954?
Finest Crutchfield
Okay.
was the minister. He was a dynamic preacher. I guess maybe probably the most dynamic of all the preachers that have been here and served since I've been here. He later became bishop in the New Orleans area, I believe, and was quite successful at that. And we got, well, he was you might say my mentor at first. He got me involved in working with the Commission on Missions and the Commission on Education, and I served on those commissions off and on, and I chaired, I think, at different times, each of those. So he was very instrumental in getting me involved in making the work available, giving support in those things. And I remember that he and his family, they acquired some cabins out in Colorado. There were a group of about 4 cabins in a little area. And he bought those up. And then his aunts, 2 aunts, maiden aunts, acquired one of those. And another was bought by Tom Wilson, who was a member of McFarlin and very much active in the visitation program of the church. So we were invited to go out and use one of the cabins on a given, we'd go stay a week or maybe 10 days. We didn't own them, but they would rent them out and were very gracious in doing that.
And this was where in Colorado? Near, you remember what it was close to?
Allen's Park. It's near Estes Park,
Oh, I see.
about 20 miles from Estes Park. And near Boulder, 30 miles from Boulder. So it was in a nice, convenient location. I think it was over something like 7,000, not terribly high, but high enough to be cooler than normal.
Oh, yeah, pleasant in the hot summer.
Pleasant, yes.
Yeah, we just interviewed with with Gene Holland a while back that was talking about going with a group from the church to some cabins in Colorado. That was a different group, I guess, a different time.
I think so.
Okay. Just very briefly, kind of run through your memories of, I know from 54 until now, there have been lots and lots of ministers here, and kind of some that stand out in your mind, maybe, some of the ministers.
Well,
I see good, you made you some notes on
I
that.
made some notes. Finest Crutchfield, as I say, he was a very outgoing person, a very young person. I remember that after he had been appointed here and he first, I think, he told us this story. On his first Sunday, after he'd given the sermon, one of the older members came up and said, "Sonny, have you ever considered going into the ministry? You did great.
Mhm.
So he was that youthful kind of a person.
Oh.
Of course, he was a minister at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And then following him, we had Paul Williams.
Mm.
And he was a fine minister. His wife, I think, was a realtor. And so we enjoyed him. Following that, I guess my next favorite minister was Wayne Coffin.
Yes.
And Wayne stayed for probably 15 or 20 years. Wayne was involved. He would be at our missions commission meetings, you know, the evening. Seemed like every week we'd have some meeting, or sometimes more than once in a week. Different organizations. Wayne had a way of working with people that was unique. He was very good with his hands, and on several occasions, he would be called out, maybe to the Arbuckle Mountains, where the church van had broken down, and he would go and put in a water
Never heard
pump
that before.
and do that, get them going again. So he was very handy in doing that, and I could relate to him because I did a lot of my own car work.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, weren't you responsible for maintaining the lawnmowers and the?
Oh yes, that's not really a pleasant
No.
memory, because, but yes, every Saturday morning for a number of years, I would come and work with the program, doling out the lawnmowers and so on. But during the week, coming down, putting in spark plugs, taking the blades off and getting them sharpened and the like. So it was a rather demanding situation. It seemed like as you go through life, you have one set of activities that kind of consumes your free time. And that was what consumed a lot of free time in that particular part of my career. Where are we now?
Okay. We talked about the ministers here.
Well, no,
And-
let me
you got
just
some more you want
go
to
ahead.
mention? Good. Uh-huh.
Yes. Following Wayne, there was a man named Jack Featherston, big, tall, lanky
Yes.
fellow. And he again had his own personality and was very friendly. But then next was Phil Finn and his wife Gloria Jean. And they were here probably 20 years, and so
I'm
they
thinking
were
I'm thinking they said 22, yeah, something
22,
like
so-
that.
all right. So
Uh-huh.
Phil was very meticulous, careful in choosing his words and actions, and very much a good minister.
Mhm.
And after that, there was a man named Dick House, who came, I think, from Muskogee. And he was another fine minister. He wasn't here that as long as that. And then we now have Linda Harker. And so we have two women ministers right now. I guess three.
And that is quite a...
Yeah, it's quite an unusual
Mhm.
situation, but that's...
Well, before we get too far
Yeah.
past it, would you tell us a little bit about, were you involved in the startup of the men's prayer breakfast?
Yes.
You want to talk about it? Maybe that picture there, it's the two guys.
Well, all right. This
You're probably going to need to focus on it with your camera. Or
Yeah. Go ahead.
You see,
Whoop, wrong way.
we had the 50th anniversary about two years ago, didn't we?
Yes. Yeah.
About
Yeah.
2014, so about
250.
1964.
64.
64. We had some devotional programs during Holy Week for men, mainly men. I think maybe some women came, but during this first week, we had the devotional programs, breakfast, for every day of the week. And I think at the time they set up, we thought that would be it. But the men said, well, we like doing this. So why don't we just come every Wednesday? And so it took off, and we prepared meals in the old kitchen down behind Meyer Hall and ate down there. We took turns with the breakfast. We'd have one person in charge of devotions and usually cooking also. And that's the way we operate today. One person about once a year has the duty of buying the groceries and making up a devotional and sharing it with the men, experiences they've had in their...
Did you start out with a collection of a quarter a person or 50 cents or what?
I think it was 50 cents.
50 cents. And how long that lasted until I was paying 50 cents when I joined it.
I expect it lasted 15 or 20 years, and then it went to $1, and it's still at $1. And I know you and I can attest that we always come out short.
We get about less than a quarter back on what we buy.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you,
introduce the two people in the picture there. Tell us who that is.
Well, the one on the left is Preston Trimble. Preston is still with us. He has been the unofficial, unelected chairman of the group since then. And the man with him is Bill Dunsworth, who had a rather minor role in the whole program. But Preston has remained with the group to this day. He sends out, no, he doesn't send out letters. He just calls you or has a secretary call you and says your duty is required. Perhaps he'll press the keys into your hand the week before and say, be here. But it's been a great service that he's performed, keeping this going. It wouldn't be existing today like it is if it hadn't been for the devotion of Preston.
Yeah, and he looks considerably different today than in that picture.
Yes.
He's a prominent attorney in Norman and has been a judge.
Yes. Yes, I think, I'm not sure whether it's district attorney or not.
it
I
was,
don't-
No,
I
it's
think went
just-
from there to a judge and then back to a lawyer.
Okay,
I've never heard him as a district attorney.
yeah.
He may have been, but I don't remember saying about it.
Okay, we covered some of this in talking about your prayer breakfast. Other activities that you were in particular, you mentioned being that, which one did you say it was that got you onto education and mission? Was that,
That was
which minister?
Finest Crutchfield.
That was Crutchfield, okay.
Yes.
Other activities that you started in early in, after you came to McFarlin? Were you all in Sunday school, or were you
Yes,
teaching Sunday
yes.
school, or?
We came and we joined what was called the 2-in-1 class. And I think that meant education and fellowship. I'm not sure. But
All in
something-
one.
All
The
in
class
one.
is still going today.
And it's still going today. totally different
Oh, yeah.
members.
Mhm.
And, but I think we were in that class for 2 or 3 years, and then we got the call,
Uh-huh.
the challenge to go with the teaching. And my wife Phyllis, she went with the young children's area, and she was with them for quite a long while.
Mhm.
And I taught in the 6th grade. I taught a boys' class for, probably 10 years.
Mhm.
And so that was a neat experience. And following that, I joined the fellowship class,
Mhm.
which it meets in Meyer Hall, the basement right under the sanctuary. And it has been in existence for 75 years or so, I guess. So we had, our class now is getting pretty small because of the deaths that have occurred, and we just don't bring in enough
Yeah.
new people. It's hard.
Are you still in that class?
I'm still in the class.
Robert, do you know when that class started up? Was it before the 2-in-1 or afterwards?
Probably about
About the
simultaneous.
same time?
I think about the same time.
Okay. That's what I would think. I have heard them said it was, they both started about the same time.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. You want to move on to your picture taking and these pictures that we found in the archives?
Well,
Or you got something else
no.
on your mind first?
No, I don't.
Now, going through these, I had said we found a lot of pictures that had on the back of them said that they were taken by Robert St. John or returned to Robert St. John, and we've just picked out a small representation today here that seemed to strike a few chords of memory, and I believe most of them we're finding were taken in the 1960s, and it seems to a lot of them seem to be centering around either the preparation for or the or carrying out the 40th anniversary on there. And I may be wrong on that, but let's just kind of talk about some of the different pictures here. I know we've already talked about Preston
And Bill Dunsworth.
Uh-huh.
Well, I would say that I acquired a very nice Nikon single-lens reflex camera, which was sort of the state of the art in those days. And I had
is this
the-
a handheld? It was not on like the professional photographers mounted it,
No, it was
a lot like that.
about the size of that.
Okay,
about-
sorry to interrupt you there.
Yeah, smaller than a loaf of bread. About 2 fists put together would be the size of it.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, I bought film by the hundreds of feet, and I would load cartridges. So we didn't want for
Mhm.
having film and worrying about the expense of film. And whenever there was a significant church activity, a certain choir singing a candlelight service, or the men's organizing their breakfast, or whatever, I would kind of just go and take pictures.
Mhm.
And during the Sunday afternoons, I would go to my dark room in the physics department building, Nielsen Hall, in the basement, where I had a dark room. And I developed the film, and then I dried it quickly and printed up a bunch of pictures. Sometimes one would have special use of them, like this.
Okay. Yeah, this,
Back here.
Joe, is this one going to show?
Yeah.
This is just a copy that we had made of this big picture that you printed, apparently a big, great big one like this, because we have they're your good copy like this, but we had made another copy with, where I could write the numbers on them and let people identify them. But tell us about taking this one.
I don't specifically remember taking this, but I'm sure I did, because it's the kind of thing that I did.
And it's the same kind of printing that you were doing.
Yes. And so I had a very good camera, very good lens, very good definition, so they could be enlarged a lot and have detail shown there. And it was used in promotion. A lot of times we were having a big missions program. I should say that one of the things that Dr. Crutchfield encouraged us to do was to have evening programs, missions. We'd have a missionary in, and I would make big displays of pictures related to that and put them in the hallway in the week or two previous to that, and so people would see what was going on. And and here's an example of
Yeah, it was used in the book for the 50th anniversary in 1974.
yes.
And, I think it seems to be pretty, when you look at the way everybody is dressed, it seems to be pretty obviously taken on a Sunday morning.
Yes, and you'll notice everybody wore a tie.
Oh, yes.
Men, they wouldn't think of coming in blue jeans
Uh-huh.
and without a tie. So times have changed, and
Okay, well, we've gotten quite a few of these people identified. Are any of them there that you wanted to point out right off that you?
I just recognize this couple, Simpsons.
Simpsons, Ernie and Irene.
Yes, that's right.
Uh-huh. Yeah. But it's an interesting picture that a lot of people have studied it, and we're getting more and more people identified all the time.
Yes.
Okay, let's go back to that small picture, this one right here, and tell us what that occasion was and who's in there.
All right, well, this picture was a confirmation class of students in the 1960s.
See if I can move this way.
And actually 1966 is quite a nice large group of 10 and 11-year-old kids. So I think the church can be proud of getting the...
And there's someone special on the back
Well,
there, the third in from the left.
Well, this is my son.
Uh-huh.
So
Is your son Glenn?
son Glenn,
Uh-huh.
who now
Yeah.
also lives in Norman.
Oh, does he? Uh-huh.
Yes.
This doesn't focus close enough for a good
Okay.
shot of it.
Okay. Let's see. Let's go ahead and let you tell us who this one. This one says it was taken October 31st, 1965, and it's a choir.
Well, it's probably
I think we decided it was the
It's
chapel choir. In
chapel
fact, I believe it
choir.
says so here. Chapel choir.
One of the significant persons is Reverend Jim Shields, who was the Wesley Foundation director at the time.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a number of very interesting and competent Wesley Foundation directors.
Uh-huh. Okay, we already talked about
Yes.
Dunsworth, and this one, we could identify one person. We don't really know. This one is also in the 1960s.
Yes, it's a group of women. It could have been connected with the United Methodist Women, or it might have been a group of Sunday school teachers. I honestly don't know, but
Yeah. There's a lot of the pictures that are dated that same date for September 11th, 1966, so apparently something was going on
well,
that you were going around and taking pictures of a lot of different groups that day.
yes.
Okay? And then this one jumps to 1974, April 21st, 1974, down in Meyer
Three
Hall.
men down in the Meyer Hall, our dining room area, the main gathering area beside the sanctuary, and it was in need of repairs. And so we did get a lot of work done, sound system, ceilings repaired, painted. It really brought up to standards.
Were those members of the
They were probably administrative board members.
administrative board?
I thought. Or no.
Trustees.
Trustees, it would have been
Trustees.
trustees.
Yeah.
Jean Powell, when we were talking about the beginnings of the 2-in-1 class, she talked about apparently that sometime their only parties would everybody would bring a brown bag lunch, and they would sit down in Meyer Hall and eat their brown bag lunches together. But that was their class parties at the time. And she talked about how the ceiling was falling apart and what a depressing place it was. Do you recall anything
I
particular?
don't remember that. I think that generally we would have a party, and it would often be in a class member's home.
Uh-huh. Well, that's
And
what.
we would bring food and,
Yeah, she talks about having a party at her own home,
yes.
and that that it was so well attended that they sat everywhere to eat, including the bathroom.
Oh, my.
That was Jean. Okay. Any other comments on your pictures?
No, it was just a great pleasure to be able to
Well, you did some beautiful work,
have
and you've
a
done
good-
a wonderful
a good-
preservation job for
a good
lot
camera.
of history from McFarlin. Let's move on. Do you remember anything about the celebration of the 40th anniversary in 1964? Do you know how big a deal they made of it, or in particular
Well, I
activities
know-
they did?
We would have former ministers in particular come back
Oh, okay.
and deliver a speech, or maybe the Sunday morning service, the sermon. And so we did that, I think, on the 40th anniversary and 50th and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So the people had changed, the ministers had changed a lot in many ways, but in other ways they were just themselves and knew instantly who they were.
And then also 10 years later, we had the 50th, same sort of memories about it, basically?
Yes, basically the same sort of thing.
No big event that stands out in your mind on either one of them?
Well, we would, in each of them, we had a Sunday night program,
Uh-huh.
which would begin at least with a big dinner, potluck dinner, and then probably we went to the sanctuary following that for more organized
Yeah.
speeches. I know one of the events that we did annually, the Commission on Education gave a candlelight, a Christmas candle
Oh, yes.
to leaders in the church, those who had performed really great jobs. And I think we would give 3 or 4 of those. It wasn't just one. And my wife and I had the privilege of getting one, I think, one year.
Oh, did you? Uh-huh. Now, we kind of passed it in a hurry when we were talking about the choir. The chapel choir just had celebrated their 50th anniversary of the chapel choir.
Candlelight
And-
service,
I'm sorry, what?
50th anniversary. of the
50th
candlelight
anniversary
service.
of the candlelight service. Yes, I got it. But were either your daughter or your son involved in the chapel choir at that time? I'm not, the reason I asked about your daughter in particular, she was talking one time about finding a bunch of your pictures in her packed away in her closet that had to do with the choir.
Well, after we had used these pictures, I might have had a dozen pictures
Uh-huh.
from a given event.
I see.
And I just put them in the old Kodak boxes, which are the right size, and stored them. And Carol, my daughter, just recently had gotten into being able to scan pictures and make nice books and things
yes,
out of
uh-huh.
them, or put them on a mug, or,
Oh, yeah.
or different things like that.
I see.
So she's taken that up and done a lot with that.
Okay. And we've already talked about your role in the development of the visitors program. Anything you need to add to that?
Oh, no, except it was just a very, very useful tool and very much helped our church get the visitors into actual programs and get into membership.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of just took on different forms. As I say, we met weekly at first, and then it got, maybe at the end, when I was doing it at the end, we met once a month, first Monday
I see.
of every month, when Russell Dilks and I would go out.
Yeah. Other particular positions or jobs, you talked about your being on the education or mission and teaching, other particular jobs you had at the church that stand out in your memory for some particular reason.
Well, the church, no, I guess I mentioned the lawn crew.
Yeah, oh yes, the
that
lawn.
we had.
That was a very important
And,
part.
and many, many men worked with that. I know some of us were the group leader once during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Like Russell was always had one Saturday, and I'd have one Saturday. And Raymond Cruz would have a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
But we had maybe 15 men who would come and do things like, well, one man the lawnmowers, but others would have the
Trimmers.
the
Oh.
blowers.
Oh, uh-huh.
Get the trimmings gathered up and so on. And some would work in the flower beds,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was quite a job too.
Question for you, Robert.
Yes.
When you first came, did you start ushering right then, or was that later?
I started ushering maybe 20 years ago.
Oh, you did? I thought you were ushering when I was there.
I could have, yeah,
Because that would have been in 56, 55, 56.
okay, I probably did.
Well, I seem to remember you along with Tom Wilson, and that's
Mhm.
that's where I have a picture of you, of having
Yes.
met you at that time.
Okay,
Because that's when I would have met you, when I was ushering. I was being upstairs in the attic. You'd be down French Road.
Okay, so any other memories that you need to share with us?
well, let me just digress to my career at OU a little
Uh-huh.
bit.
Okay.
I worked with the physical science students, their introductory courses to physics. And I had thousands of them. Well, there was a very personal situation came up. I have to tell you that my daughter, Carol, has Parkinson's disease. And so it was early onset. In other words, she was a young person when it came on. Well, about 4 years ago, we were looking into a surgical procedure, which is called deep brain stimulation.
Uh-huh.
And with that, the surgeon inserts electrodes down into a very specific lobe in the brain so that electrical voltage can be applied, and there's one on each side. And that sort of disrupts the
Mm-hmm.
messages that have kind of gone wrong and makes it possible for a person with Parkinson's to function more properly, have less off times. We were considering this surgery, and so we went to the Health Sciences Center and met with a surgeon there to talk about the possibility of having it done there. And so we met in his office and talking about how he does it and what she would go through and so on. And we had been there for about half an hour, and he looked over at me and he says, "I know who you are." He says, "You were my physics professor in 1980.
Oh my.
So he was able to do very successful surgery with her.
Isn't that amazing?
So I got to thinking, God was at work through me that far back
Wow.
for her benefit. I take it that way. And so I had a little part in his education. Dr. Rabb is his name. And during the surgery, which lasted about 6 hours,
Oh, my.
3 hours on the side, halfway through, they'd done one side. His nurse called me on the cell phone at the hospital and said, "Dr. St. John, I want to thank you for helping make Dr. Rabb such a good doctor."
Wow.
And that really touched my heart.
That is just amazing.
So it was amazing. And I've had the benefit of very good surgery. My wife has. I had 2 heart valves replaced in 2012. Went to the Cleveland Clinic and had it done there.
A lot of prayers went with you when you went to the hospital.
Yes, that's right. Prayers are quite noticeable and helpful. Well, that's, I guess.
You know, it's hard to follow that story, but I did have one more question I was going to ask you that I had forgotten. Your service in the community. I know that you do some things in the community besides, in particular, I know that you're involved with AARP tax help.
Yes, that's been an avocation of mine since 1980, the year I retired from OU. We have a group sponsored by the AARP that trained in tax law and the preparation of income tax returns, federal and state, for the lower income people, retired people. So I've done that for these 25, 26 years, and it's given me a lot of pleasure in order to be able to give the assistance like that. Well, that's about my story.
One question that I do like to ask at the end of these is, what would be your prayer, your hope, your wish for McFarlin in the future?
Well, is to continue the outreach. I know we concentrate on keeping our buildings up and so on, and changing the carpet and getting the painting, but we also have this great mission of assisting those who can't help themselves. That includes people in this country and other countries. So it's the Missions Commission has a great calling. And our education, getting young people educated, Sunday school, and getting them involved in doing this and seeing the role that the Christians have in making a difference in people's lives.
Well, Robert, Kate, thank you so much for sharing with us today. It's been an inspiring talk, and so much enjoyed visiting with you.
Well, thank you, and it's been a pleasure being here.